Have you ever stopped for a moment and looked around, wondering why everything feels slightly off, even when the news keeps saying that the economy is strong and stable? Why do so many people say they can't find work, while at the same time companies claim they can't find workers? It sounds contradictory, almost impossible, and yet it's the exact reality unfolding before our eyes. What's happening right now might be one of the strangest job market collapses in modern history. Because this isn't a normal downturn. It's not the kind of crash we've seen in the past, with panic, chaos, or visible destruction. This one is quiet, hidden beneath numbers that look fine on the surface, but tell a completely different story underneath. The system is still running, still humming, but something deep within it is breaking apart. And by the time most people realise it, it might already be too late to stop what's coming next. So stay until the end to realise it and leave a like. Let's start with a simple but troubling question. How can millions of people be losing their jobs while companies continue to post thousands of new openings online every single day? How can the unemployment rate rise yet restaurants, offices and factories still hang "help wanted" signs on their doors? These contradictions don't make sense in a traditional economy. They don't fit the patterns that we've come to expect. But this time we're dealing with something different. Something no one alive today has ever truly experienced. Across the United States and even across much of the world, the job market is starting to behave in ways economists can't fully explain. Over the past year, unemployment has quietly risen in more than half of American states. Entire sectors that once seemed untouchable, from technology to finance to healthcare, are now seeing layoffs. And yet, when you look at the data, when you look at the official numbers, it still looks like the labour market is strong. But that's just the surface. Beneath it, a strange new kind of collapse is spreading. This isn't the sudden crash of 2008 or the violent shock of 2020. It's something more subtle, like ice melting in slow motion. It doesn't shatter all at once. It weakens quietly until one day it gives way, and everything falls apart at once. For decades, recessions followed a predictable path. Growth slowed, companies panicked, jobs were cut, unemployment spiked, and only then did the recovery begin. But this time that pattern is broken. What we're witnessing now looks like a collapse unfolding in reverse. The first cracks appeared almost 2 years ago. Small businesses began struggling to hire because they couldn't compete with the wages offered by big corporations during the post-pandemic boom. Then, the big corporations overhired, expecting an era of endless growth that never actually arrived. When that growth began to slow, the layoffs started. Tech giants announced massive job cuts. Financial firms trimmed entire divisions. Startups lost funding and disappeared overnight. Suddenly, thousands of skilled, experienced workers were back on the job market. But this time, something felt different. These people weren't getting hired again. They sent hundreds of applications, polished their resumes, joined interviews that went nowhere. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and silence became the new normal. For many, it was the first time in their careers that being qualified wasn't enough. And then they noticed something even stranger. Despite millions of applications being sent out, there were still supposedly more job openings than unemployed workers. The numbers didn't add up. How could there be a shortage of workers and yet no one was getting hired? The answer, as it turns out, is that a large part of the job market we see today isn't real. Many of the job listings you see online are placeholders. Some companies post positions that don't actually exist to make it seem like they're growing, to gather resumes, or to satisfy internal metrics. Others list openings they've already filled internally. Some keep postings up permanently, not because they're hiring, but because they want to keep a pool of potential candidates ready for the future. The result is an illusion, a job market that looks active and healthy, but is in reality filled with ghosts. At the same time, automation and artificial intelligence are quietly rewriting the rules. Machines and algorithms are taking over tasks that once required entire teams of people. This doesn't mean humans are being replaced overnight, but it does mean that the middle layer of the workforce, the jobs that used to keep economies stable, is slowly evaporating. Think about accounting, marketing, customer service, data entry, or even parts of programming. These are positions now being streamlined by AI, making one person do what 5 used to. Companies call it efficiency. But for millions of workers, it feels more like disappearance. Yet despite this massive transformation, the official numbers still paint a picture of stability. Governments count jobs lost and jobs created, but they don't count the workers whose hours were cut in half or whose pay has stagnated for years. They don't measure the millions of people who quietly stopped looking for work after being ignored too many times. They don't measure the graduates who never even enter the labour force because there's nowhere left for them to go. That's why the current collapse looks so strange. Because it's not a collapse you can see, it's one you feel. Just a little break, I opened a free Telegram community where I teach how to earn money with YouTube and build channels like the one you're watching. If you want to understand how to do it, there's the link below. Back to before. Right now, 25 states across the US show rising unemployment. In some, the rate is the highest it's been in over a decade. Historically, every time this pattern appeared, when at least half the states started seeing unemployment climb, it was the beginning of a major economic downturn. It happened in 2009 and again in 2020. Both were followed by recessions. But this time, there's no widespread panic, no collapsing GDP, no headlines screaming crisis. Instead, there's just a quiet unease, a sense that something invisible is shifting beneath our feet. That's what makes this job market collapse so different. It's not just about economics, it's about psychology. People used to believe that as long as they worked hard, stayed adaptable, and improved their skills, there would always be opportunities. But now even the best workers are realizing that something fundamental has changed. It's not just layoffs they fear anymore. It's the uncertainty that lingers even when they're employed. Jobs that once felt secure now seem fragile. Companies that seemed unstoppable are suddenly freezing hires. Recruiters who once flooded inboxes with offers have gone completely silent. Behind all of this lies another invisible factor: demographics. Millions of older workers retired early after the pandemic, and many never returned. Meanwhile, younger generations are entering the job market with different expectations, valuing flexibility and meaning over stability. Companies desperate to cut costs are trying to adapt by automating roles and outsourcing tasks. The result is a strange in-between world. A job market that looks busy, but isn't actually moving. Imagine an engine still running, but stuck in neutral. It makes noise, it burns fuel, but it doesn't go anywhere. That's the global job market right now. In Canada, unemployment has reached its highest level in almost a decade. In the United Kingdom, it's climbed close to 5%. In Germany, Europe's industrial powerhouse, the number of job seekers continues to rise. Yet governments keep using the same comforting words. Soft landing, resilient economy, temporary slowdown. But history rarely agrees with those words for long, because when employment weakens quietly, the full damage takes time to appear. It's like a small crack in a dam. At first it looks harmless, but with every passing day, the pressure builds. The water finds its way through, and one day the wall gives way completely. That's how labour collapses happen, slowly, invisibly, and then all at once. Economists from the National Bureau of Economic Research use 4 key metrics to determine when a recession begins: unemployment, industrial production, real income, and trade sales. The first of those, unemployment, is already flashing red. The other 3 still look stable, but that's how it always begins. The labour market is the first domino. Once it falls, the rest follow. So why isn't there panic yet? Maybe because people have been living with uncertainty for too long. After the chaos of the pandemic, after inflation, after endless interest rate hikes, many assume this is just another temporary slowdown. But this time it feels different, because this isn't only about people losing their jobs. It's about the entire concept of work shifting beneath our feet. In the old economy, you could predict what would happen. If the Federal Reserve cut interest rates, companies borrowed more, hired more, expanded more. But today, even as rates come down, companies aren't rushing to hire. They're cutting costs, tightening budgets, preparing for a future that feels less predictable by the day. And maybe that's the most unsettling part, because no one really knows what comes next. Some experts call it a silent collapse, not because it's sudden, but because it's happening without a sound. No crashes, no headlines, no panic. Just a slow draining of stability, a quiet erosion of opportunity. You might not notice it day to day, but the foundations of the job market are shifting under your feet. And when the silence finally breaks, we may realise it wasn't just jobs disappearing. It was the old idea of work itself. The numbers will still look fine for a while. Reports will still say things are stable. But beneath it all, something entirely new is taking shape. A job market unlike anything we've seen before. And that's what makes this collapse so strange and so dangerous. Because it isn't just a collapse of employment, it's a collapse of certainty. The strangest job market collapse in history has already begun. And it started not with fear or chaos, but with confusion, silence, and a world that looks fine on the surface, even as it changes forever underneath. To leave this confusion in your mind, you can just smash that subscribe and like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I also want to remind you that if you want to build a YouTube channel like the one you're watching now and make money from it, I opened a free Telegram community with the link below. See you there or in the next video. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.